Hey guys, ViscosCalm24 here, bringing you a real quick redstone video. Today I'll be showing you all how to build this. It is my 3x3 redstone block only TNT door. Very long name, very weird looking door. It is sort of what the name implies. It is a door that uses only redstone blocks as a wiring component, alongside sticky pistons and normal pistons of course. And the hallway and door blocks are all TNT. So Reddit very aptly dubbed this the anxiety door because it is anxiety inducing to have a door made of TNT powered only by things that can set it off. And you can see none of the TNT blocks are set off. In case you don't believe me and think that TNT explodes is off, you can see it's definitely on. That's just part of the challenge of this door. This is a very strange niche kind of door, but Reddit seemed to like it, especially r/redstone, seeing as it's now second top of all time for whatever reason. And so I'm bringing you the tutorial as requested. And yeah, this thing is 9 blocks wide, 5 blocks deep, and 14 blocks tall. So it has a volume of 630 blocks. This is, I believe, the smallest out there, just because it's really hard to do redstone block only on Java Edition, and no one else on Bedrock Edition cares. So, technically smallest, not that it even matters, it's still huge. So, on to the materials list. You can see here, not a wide variety of things. Lamps, I'll explain. So, you need to have a stack and 19 sticky pistons, or a total of 83. 19 regular pistons for things like sliders and blocking off redstone blocks. A total of 80 redstone blocks, and then 8 slider blocks. And now the lamps. The reason for the lamps is because TNT and lamps actually have the exact same powering properties. You can see here, power's there, there, all that good stuff. TNT and lamps have the exact same powering properties, but lamps don't explode. So when testing TNT doors, I generally like to use lamps, and a lot of other door makers like to use lamps as well, just because if you see a lamp on, you know the door would go boom. You just don't have to deal with having to rebuild everything. And so that's why I'm going to be using lamps for the tutorial section to avoid mess ups, and then at the end, switching it over to TNT. Although, let's be real here, this door is hardly like survival or even creative friendly. If you have TNT on, this door is just a hazard. So the only reason I'm showing the tutorial is to make it so that I can explain things as I build, rather than just flying around the door and explaining things without you being able to really see them in action. And for relocating the input, I'm just going to be doing a little bit of a joke redstone block only T flip-flop with some dust and the buttons to relocate it. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into the tutorial. So to get started with your door, you're going to want to place down a lamp, and to be safe, make sure that the TNT is not in your hotbar. Place, this is in the middle of your door by the way, right here for reference. Place 2 blocks to the front and back of it, then 3 temporary blocks and your 3 sticky pistons right here for a fake double. Then you're going to want to put down a block of redstone, then any temporary blocks, just build it out so there's 2 spaces left, and then put in your slider. Then over on this side, place down 4 temporary blocks and then 2 normal pistons just like this to create the other side of your slider so that it can pass these blocks back and forth. Your input will be up here, so fill in the rest of your floor just so that you can better position the input. The input is this sticky piston right here with a redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block. Then put a temporary block and a normal piston. Put down a slider block right here, 4 redstone blocks, so that's 4, then another slider block, sticky piston, and a redstone block. So the reason that you need to have all of these redstone blocks inside the slider is because of it's the only way for you to really make like good dual edge pulses on Bedrock Edition. On Java Edition there is another way, but to be honest, I mean, like, they're both relatively the same in terms of their versatility. So this right here, this slider will sort of, while these redstone blocks are moving, this piston will be deactivated and then immediately reactivated when the other redstone block gets in place, like this. And it does this on both movements of the slider, and that's needed for this right here. So put that there. You can see on the closing edge, what I do is I pulse this, then we activate the slider, and then we wait. We wait for the opening. On the opening, then, to get in the double piston extension, we have this pulse again. Then we reactivate the slider, and then this part of the slider kicks into action, just like so. And then we get in the rest of the retraction gradually. I'm not going to activate that. I am definitely not going to activate that. So yeah, that's how the double piston extender works. It's the easiest way to move blocks out of the middle of a 3x3. And I've shown this a few times before, but I'll just really quickly set up a quick demo. Because a lot of people like to add more logic that doesn't need to be there in a 3x3. So as we all know, this right here is the regular 3x3. But if you add a double piston extender at the top, you can have this retract and then pulse that, and you don't even need to have a full double piston extension semi-hipster on the bottom. It takes away a lot of logic, makes things easier, etc., etc. Regardless, that is why I have this whole setup on the bottom here, rather than having the regular semi-hipster that you would need to have, where you have it retract. Let me just set it back up again. So you have it retract, move out of the way, and then this mess, which would be very difficult to do with redstone block only TNT. Instead, I just have the extender here pulse, and then the top be the storage. So that's what this is needed for, getting in the double piston extender. Very lengthy explanation. Then put in on this side a piston right here, redstone block, here, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, and then a sticky piston and a redstone block. This massive chain right here is actually just the slider. So as you can see here, when I give that a pulse, it'll slide. Remember when I said you needed the slider to activate both on the closing and the opening? That is why it's attached to this slider right here. So it'll get a pulse when it closes and when it opens. And to get in the opening, you need to put that there. So yeah, very, very simple, very, very easy. And obviously this is handled separately. So right now what we've got is pulse, slider. And in order to get the pulse from this slider to activate the other side, you need to have a sticky piston facing down there with a redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block. And then this is going to get very messy. So have a sticky piston facing down here with a redstone block, then have one right next to the arm with a redstone block, and then right here, redstone block. Put a temporary block here, and then a sticky piston facing up with a redstone block. But this right here is where things get really, really weird. So remember how I said you had to pulse this in order to pull it down, pull that sticky piston down from there, right? And then give that a pulse, etc., etc. That has to be handled from the front, obviously, because I don't really have any space back here without messing with the sliders. And so I handled it through here, but the unfortunate thing is that because it's connected to the sliders, when I repulse the sliders, which will come later, I'll show, it would actually break the door and end up not closing. And so what I had to do was I had to have right here a piston to cut off this sticky piston right here, which handles the slider right here for the retraction at this point. And that slider also has another bit that I'm going to show right now, because as you can see here, the slider, if it's always active, it'll actually activate too soon. This was a problem on my first design. Like, in fact, heck, I should have pointed this out earlier. You probably noticed this is not the design I showed on Reddit if you were paying like really close attention to the details. This is not the design I showed on Reddit. This is a slightly modified version because of how this worked. On the old version, and I think I will put a video of it breaking right here on screen right now, it would have this weird unreliable bit where on the pulse, this would pulse, and then that would get activated, breaking the whole door, which is obviously not ideal. So in order for me to fix that, what I actually did was I took an output from here with a redstone block, then a block, sticky piston, and then a piston right here. And what this does is it actually controls the slider. So let's assume the slider's deactivated. It will not, in fact, you know what, yeah, here's how we deactivate the slider. On the opening edge, or the closing edge, this will get retracted, and you can see that deactivates. This slider won't activate until this piston gets powered. Just like so. Which is very, very convenient. And so that's why this whole massive mess is here. Also, you need this in order to make sure that the slider does not break itself on the opening, and it sort of prevents this thing from pushing up too soon. So that right there is the mess of a bottom wiring, but we've actually finished the bottom wiring. The only thing that I'm going to add in now is a piston right here to act as an immovable block for when this thing gets to that position. And so that right there is the bottom wiring, pretty much all completed. And it was a mess, and I hope the explanation worked. Now we're going to get onto the sides. So put a block right there, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, 2 sticky pistons to the top and bottom of that arm with their own respective redstone blocks. Temporary blocks there and there, 2 sticky pistons facing up and down with their own redstone blocks, and then sticky pistons here and here with their redstone blocks. You can now put in your wall pistons, and so this serves a dual function, actually like a 3-way function. So first of all, it powers these 3 sticky pistons at the right times, which is obvious, but it also locks our slider. So let's just assume that I don't have the slider locker, and I just activate this. You can see what happens is it just breaks. It does exactly what it's not supposed to do. It gets sent through several pulses and then gets completely ruined because this side of the slider activated. And so as you can see here, it's just not been able to pulse at all, which is not ideal. So that is what this is here for. As you can see here, this piston being activated is what is preventing this slider from being powered. Once this piston deactivates, this part of the slider activates, as you can see. And so this, on the closing edge, powers, keeping it locked so that even when this gives a pulse, it won't retract and the slider won't power. And so as you can see here, that is exactly what happens. And now it's actually in the position where it can give the pulse and then retract and actually function properly this time. So this side actually handles a fair bit of logic. Now to carry the signal up to the top, put a temporary block, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston or redstone block, then a chain of 2 more, just like so, leading to here. Put a normal piston, and this will actually cut off a redstone block that you don't want being powered or being able to extend. And before we continue, put a piston right here with a redstone block, and then use this to position some of your ceiling. 2 temporary blocks, 2 sticky pistons facing down, and then over here, put a sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, and then a slider. So this slider right here handles the closing for the middle block, and it's actually got a fair bit of very delicate timing worked into it. So place down 2 redstone blocks, just like so, to get in another dual edge. A block, then sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, then another block, and a piston. What I needed was this slider to first, to depower, and I'm going to really quickly just show you. So you have a sticky piston facing down right here with a redstone block that is able to power this, right? So it gives in the pulses that will close the door. What you want is, so when this deactivates, you want this to power, giving it a pulse. Then this right here this storage piston will push in, and then you want, after the storage piston having been pushed in, this will have locked, this will have given a pulse, if I really quickly show you, like, there you go, like that. You want this to have kept it extended long enough for this to get its pulse, so that then when it deactivates, it gets another pulse pushing it down. And so that's what this little mess of pistons right here is for, to get in that delay. It's all very weird with a lot of inversions, and so if you don't see it, that's fine. It'd take actually being able to see it in person, probably, to fully analyze it, which is why I'm giving you this tutorial. And so that's how the top slider works for the closing. This mess right here is literally just for the closing. And with that, you can finish up your ceiling. And then put a sticky piston facing down with a redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, a temporary block right there, sticky piston, redstone block, sticky piston, and a redstone block. This whole setup right here is literally just to control the sides, and this right here is a fake single. It looks like a double piston extender, but it only pushes 1, and it gets its retraction pulse from right there. And so that right there is how you get in these side pistons. And that right there is your side layout, all set up to be powered properly. And there we go. But Viscose, what about literally the entire rest of the top? What's this mess for? That right there is for the slider. So something that was plaguing me the entire time while I was building this door is the fact that I can't power these pistons from here. Because as you can see, all those lamps turn on. This piston cannot be powered from right next to it, and neither can this one. All of these lamps will be powered, as you can see. So the only place to power these pistons is literally right behind it, where another piston is. And so the top section had suffered from this too, obviously having to do its own final retraction. And so I had to have an entire slider for the top just to get in that one final retraction. And then that slider also served the dual function of getting in the repulse for the bottom. And so if you want to flick your lever now, you can. You can see that you've actually gotten the full closing now. But what you'll have of the opening is not much. That will push up, and you can see it'll actually get retracted into its storage spot. But you'll notice now we have this left. This entire chunk of the door still has to be retracted. And so what we need is for the top to retract, we need the slider to activate, which will retract that block. And then for the bottom, we need a repulse throughout the entire bottom slider. And as you can see, that'll retract everything. And so to get this in, what I did was I, first of all, went over here and created this very, very nasty chain of sticky pistons redstone blocks. If that was hard to follow, here it is. Start off with this, go around to here, then a red sticky piston with a redstone block right there, sticky piston facing down with a redstone block, and then 2 sticky pistons with redstone blocks right next to that piston head. And so this will get in the first extension of our slider up top, as you can see, pulses, retracts. And then on the other side, the way that I got the pulse over to here was I took it from here. So the second that redstone block got in place, I have it sort of snake its way through here. And this is going to get very, very dirty. So I'm actually going to really quickly put it back into its proper position. So you have a sticky piston facing up with a redstone block, sticky piston, redstone block, then a sticky piston facing towards the back with a redstone block, sticky piston facing towards this side with a redstone block, sticky piston facing up with a redstone block, another one, redstone block, and then a chain going right through the top of the door. And if that was hard to follow, I'm very sorry. I really, slowing it down won't do much. I would recommend you, turn the video to a slower speed, but then just rewatch it a few times to get the exact order. Because this was an absolute mess. I was just throwing different combinations to see if I could get it to work, and eventually this one did. Sticky piston, redstone block, then 2 sticky pistons facing down right here with redstone blocks. This right here is just sort of like a quality of life speed thing in order to make it so that when this retracts, that only gets a short pulse as opposed to having to wait for the whole thing to deactivate again. Then sticky piston with a redstone block, and then a sticky piston with a redstone block right there to activate this part of the slider. Then we take an output through here, and that handles the refire for the bottom, because as you can see, when this retracts, the bottom slider gets kicked into action. And believe it or not, that is actually your door completed, granted that I haven't forgotten anything. And so if you want to give it a test, flick your lever, and you can see it will all close. And you flick it again, you should see it will now all open, and the refire will travel through the door. Now, if you don't believe me on this quality of life thing, this is actually something that I noticed, and I'm really glad I was able to fix it. So you can see closing isn't affected by removing that piston, but when I do the opening now, you will notice that this will take ages to finish. And so I decided to throw this in to fix the speed, and I'm pretty sure that that is basically the fastest that it can be. I couldn't find any other spots where it would actually be convenient to place in another piston, and as such, I've just left it the way it is. And so, yeah. That is the door. I hope you found some use from this. It's actually got a lot of cool, interesting redstone block only tricks, and I didn't even cover all of them. I don't think I can remember all of them. So it's good to build with the lamps in case you want to know more about redstone block only tricks on Bedrock Edition, but it's not so good to build with the TNT because the TNT is prone to explode. However, now that you've got the whole door built, it is actually technically safe to replace everything with the TNT. You just have to be extremely careful, because if this thing goes boom, well, there goes everything in the immediate area. So I'm going to be extremely cautious myself because one misclick and everything goes. Now, if you do want to have an insurance policy, you can actually just keep a water bucket on hand. And so if you can quickly switch the water bucket and place it before the timer finishes, then you will be all good to go. And you can either shepherd the TNT out of there in what little time you have left of the timer, or you can just sort of try and flood the TNT because this door, unlike other doors, actually can be completely waterlogged and it'll be perfectly fine. So you can pour water all over this thing to prevent a TNT from exploding and it'll be okay. But yeah, that is it. That is the door. This is Editing Viscose here. I just realized I completely forgot how to show you guys how to make that joke of a redstone block only T flip-flop I mentioned. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. It's very, very simple. So really, just so long as you can extend the hallway out, it doesn't really matter where you put it. It's just, it really does have to be right here that, with dust. And that does mean that it's not truly redstone block only, but this is the best I could think of to still keep up with the redstone block only theme. I've had this T flip-flop for a while, and you might even recognize it if you've seen one of my older videos about door spam proofing, but start off with 2 sticky pistons with 2 blocks in between them facing each other, and then a block of redstone on the faces of one of them. I prefer to put it on the face that isn't next to the dust, because then it won't activate the door and I don't have to deal with that until later. Then a sticky piston on top of it facing the opposite direction of the sticky piston underneath. Sticky piston right there, redstone block there, and then dust on top. You can see this right here will work with a button input. And you can reroute this dust here to be pretty much anywhere you want. And so yeah, now that you've seen how to build this, let's just finish up the video. And so I hope you all enjoyed this real quick tutorial. I know people on Reddit have probably been awaiting this tutorial and explanation for far too long now. So here it is. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm ViscoseCone24, and I'll see you next time with another door.